Good evening, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Firas Patel. It's good to be back at our Johannesburg studio. We thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. Well, 96 hours on, how are you as an ANC councillor feeling or taking stock of what your party's President Cyril Ramaphosa said over the weekend? What he said was the party must take stock of its shortfalls, highlighting that it was, in his words, painful to admit that some of the country's best-run municipalities were governed by the DA. So Ramaphosa was speaking at the FNB Stadium where he addressed over 40,000 party councillors from across the country. While the ANC controls a majority of the municipalities in the country, it also governs some of the worst performing ones, including Maluti, Apu, Fong, and Ditsobotla. Ramaphosa said that improving audit outcomes in the municipalities' finances had to be a priority for every ANC councillor. Joining us now, I'd like to welcome no stranger to us here on News in Focus on Hilaal TV, Professor Sipho Seepe, political analyst. Prof, always good having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Prof, I'm trying to understand. So did President Ramaphosa, and I'm sure you can speak of this at length, do you feel he was doing this to supposedly motivate these 40,000 councillors? Or was this really the supposed harsh truth that some of these councillors needed to hear?
Well, there's a harsh truth about the reality when it comes to audit outcomes. But where he failed to understand, or where he also shows that he's disconnected with South African reality, is that in spite of the fact that the ANC may control those municipalities, but those municipalities are really in places that have been defined by apartheid as almost concentrations of poverty, where you have high unemployment, where people are not even able to pay the rates that the government expects the people to pay so that there could be delivery of services. But at the same time, it also shows that here's a president who has been so disconnected with also his own constituencies, because there are instances where the ANC municipalities have actually done well. If he wanted to motivate them, he would have actually have selected those areas where the ANC has actually done well to say, these are the people that you should look up to and you should emulate. And as a matter of fact, there have been times when the DA itself has pointed out to some of the areas where the ANC has actually done well. But the president of the ANC is unable to point out where they have actually done well. Effectively, what the ANC president was also saying is that where white people live, where they govern, they do it better. But what he also does not, he fails to hear from his own people, the people who continue to support the ANC, is that in areas where you have black people, like Khayelitsha, like Langa, like Guguletu, those conditions remain places of squalor. And where there's highest concentration of black people who continue to vote for the ANC. So what he was saying must be seen as an insult to many members of the ANC who still think that the ANC can be an answer, because the black people in those areas continue to support the ANC, not the DA, precisely because they see the DA as providing services only to white spaces, not to black spaces. And also, if you go to Tshwane, where the DA had also been in control for a number of years, the material conditions of black people in those areas that the apartheid defined remain the same. But this is the same party that whenever there's a discussion around transformation, it is the first party to want to rush to the courts, to abuse the constitution, to undermine the whole notion of what you call a transformation of the special patterns that apartheid bequeathed. And in addition, we have a situation where, as we speak, every policy that talks about change, about land, the DA has always tended to be saying no. But one must understand that the conditions of squalor have also to do with the issues of land hunger. So the president here was being misguided. But what we also know that it is the president who is always shocked, even about the conditions in Gauteng. This is a president who goes to Johannesburg to the Lutula House. And when he was shown how the Lutula House and Johannesburg looks like, again, he was shocked. So we don't have a president. We have a person who, whenever he sees a crowd, he gets excited. With Ramaphosa, it has always been about the PR exercises. But even when you talk about the notion of clean audits, we must also ask ourselves, how has clean audit led to greater material delivery of services? Yes, we must be able to account for every cent. Yes, clean audits are very important, but at the same time, we must focus on delivery of services. The reason why the ANC is being punished, it is not because of clean audits or lack of clean audits. It's because the ANC failed to deliver services. So you can look good on the book, but if on the ground, people do not feel you. And what he did was to decampaign the ANC. And Helen Zille is correct to have jumped at the bandwagon, which is, of course, what Helen Zille has always been saying, that where the DA governs, it does it better. Now the president of the ANC has actually done that for Helen Zille. So this is why people are saying, well, this man is funded by the same people who fund the DA. So effectively, he is there to destroy the ANC, not to advance it.
Yeah, Prof, I wanted to ask you that because Helen Zille has come out and saying, oh, yes, President Ramaphosa is correct. We do have the best run metros. We do have the best run municipalities. The proof is right over there. Those comments, have they given the Democratic Alliance, especially Helen Zille, who says that she wants to run for the mayor of Johannesburg, which is probably the most important metro in this country, has he given her some sort of a head start by these comments, Prof?
Oh, definitely. And he has also gone beyond that. And of course, Helen Zille, all he has to do is says, I'm not saying it. The president of the ANC says it. So why would you, as a voter of the ANC, go and elect and support the ANC candidates when the president of the ANC says, I've got no confidence in my own people? But these are the same people who are being bought within the ANC. But also the president talks about consequence management and he talks about corruption. But this is a person who is also found to have possibly have been involved in a scandalous behavior. We cannot take away Pala Pala. If we want to talk about the consequence management as he does, it must start with him. And as some people have pointed out, if we want to talk about consequence management, he must start also with his own cabinet. So this is a president who has allowed ministers who have been found to be wanting, instead of removing them, as he expected the councillors to be removed, he has actually shielded them. So you cannot have a person who he does not walk the talk, but also he is the last person to talk about being anti-corruption. At the moment, the entire criminal justice system is under scrutiny because when you look at Pala Pala, it appears that despite the fact that there was a clear crime that was committed, despite the fact that there's Pala Pala was a crime scene, nobody has been held to account. Instead, the law enforcement agencies appears to be compromised. Each one is jumping to want to shield the president rather than to hold him accountable. So he is not a man to be trusted. And the members of the ANC are now beginning to see this loud and clear, and the citizens of this country and the voters are going to say, if this man remains the president of the ANC, there's no reason why the ANC should be voted in. Because if there is one person who is very good in decampaigning the ANC, it is Ramaphosa himself.
Well, after the break, my conversation continues with Prof Seepe. We're going to be asking the question, is there a possibility that next year's local government elections, these words that President Ramaphosa said over the weekend at the FNB Stadium, could come back to haunt the African National Congress? Do stay tuned. My conversation continues after the break. Welcome back to News in Focus. I'm still in conversation with Professor Sipho Seepe, political analyst. We, of course, are breaking down President Cyril Ramaphosa's comments that were made over the weekend regarding the ANC-run metros and municipalities. Again, thank you so much for staying with us, Prof. Prof, here's the thing, right? In the comments, President Ramaphosa says, well, this is being said so that we do not make the mistakes of losing the metros and the municipalities which we have control over. We look at last year's election results, 44% by the ANC, huge drop, number one. And number two, let's go to the city of Johannesburg. Basic necessities like water is still not being delivered. This is an own goal, isn't it, Prof? Because if the ANC is not attending to these fundamental issues, well, it's shooting itself in the own foot in trying to not just retain these municipalities and metros, but ultimately win ones which they lost to the DA and other parties.
All he needs to do is to go and take pictures that shocked Ramaphosa and point out that this metro is being run by the ANC. They need to be able to show the squalor and then repeat what President Ramaphosa had said. And that is sufficient. But what we also know is that people also vote on the basis of the messaging that comes from at the national level. If you have a president who they saw unable to defend the country when it came to his appearance before in the White House, they would see that this is not a leader. So why would they want to support a person who leads a party that has not removed a person who appears not to have put the interest of the country at his as a main priority? You have the growing unemployment. The people are going to be responding on the material realities, on their lived experiences. And they are going to think that because you have this party that is supposed to make, that has promised a better life for all, instead it has given them poverty for all, they are not going to be voting for that party. So the messages at a high level are the ones that are going to make a determination on which way people are going to vote. But the DA here has a very clear advantage. All you have to do is that to show a squalor and then quote the president of the ANC and run with the metros.
Prof, Cape Town, I mean, it's quite clear that it's going to be difficult for the ANC to win the Cape Town city. I'd like to think that they're going to have to mount a serious challenge in order for that to happen. But of course, the three here in Gauteng, which is Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, and the city of Johannesburg, of course, they've got a chance. And if we were to look at data, it points towards the DA probably pipping the ANC. In your view, Prof, and I know we're still probably a year and a half away from that happening, does the ANC realize that they're probably in a very difficult position now to not just retain seats within the metro that can have some sort of coalition government, but ultimately losing it? Because, again, I'm mentioning Johannesburg, if they can't supply the basics like water, the people are going to be frustrated. We saw that last week in Westbury, and even when Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero went there, the people weren't buying into his messaging.
Yeah, well, the ANC has said 30 years and 31 years of governance and being in power. It had failed. There is no reason why the people will think that this time the ANC will do better. And what we also know, that once the ANC loses power, it is unable to gain it. What we saw happening in the Western Cape, once it lost Cape Town, it was not able to regain. And once it lost the Western Cape, it was not able to regain any or make any strides or gain any traction. So this will be the continuous story. But also we have a party where at the moment the preoccupation is about internal politics. It is about the weaponization of state law or law enforcement agencies against their own. So there will be a lot of bloodletting that is going to take place within the ANC, which is going to defocus it from the business of delivery of services to the people. So I don't think the ANC is in a good state. As a matter of fact, people would argue that we're talking about a party that is almost on the deathbed.
And that's the thing, Prof. How does the ANC recover itself from this last year's elections? I know it's in a much more stronger position, and I want to use the word stronger in a very light manner, because there are, of course, different elements that come within the government of national unity. But heading into these elections next year, do you feel they enter into a weaker position? And I'm not just referring to the comments of the president. The fact that when you look at the national elections, and the national elections is a preamble to what actually happens for the local government elections.
Yeah, I think what South Africans have proven to the ANC is that South Africa will exist in spite of the ANC. And the mere fact that we have crossed that Rubicon, where the people of this country can say the ANC does not own us, you can understand that the removal of the ANC from its pedestal, the heavens have not fallen. And instead, what the DA has been able to do, and other parties, is to start talking about a language of possibility. And that language of possibility is a possibility of South Africa going forward without the ANC. And that is a strong message that is emerging from the ground. And it doesn't help that you also have a blundering president. You also have a president whose credibility has gone down the drain. So it is not possible that they would be able to recoup. 1 year is a very short space of time. If they failed to have corrected themselves after they lost last year, they are unlikely to make any gains right now.
Prof, one final question. The ANC said it would be running a 3-month reviews on all its councillors to track the individual progress in implementing the action plans. Do you feel this is a sort of last resort to try and convince these municipalities where the councillors are that we can still have some sort of clean track record of our officials?
What we know at the moment is that there's a lot of infighting within municipalities, and the ANC can come up with all sorts of stories. We've had the renewal, we've had the new dawn, we've had all the promises, but those promises have come to naught. So this one is also one of those that is going to come to naught, because at the moment, the ANC stands as accused, whether you're talking about corruption, whether you're talking about incompetence. And when you have a president who himself cannot walk the talk, then it is unlikely that on the ground they'll be able to walk the talk. This is a president who had to be shielded, where members of the ANC did not say, the president, you are not guilty, where they said we're going to use our majority to protect you, because we know that if we're going to have an investigation into your affairs, then you're going to be in trouble. It was the former president, Thabo Mbeki, who raised the issue that when the members of the ANC vote to suppress and to stop the investigation of the president on the issue of Palapala, what message are they saying? Because this is the president who, a former Chief Justice, said he had a case to answer. Yeah. There was a time when we believed that when the judges speak, and we're told even by almost everybody, including the so-called civil society, the foundations of this country, the so-called legacy foundations, where they said we need to respect the members of the judiciary, and when we speak, we must take them seriously. Now, suddenly, those groupings have become definitely silent, and people are aware of this hypocrisy. And you also have this failed national dialogue. You have a president who had gone on television saying to the people, tell us why do we have people who are poor when others are rich? When he is one of the richest, not because he has been very brilliant in business, but these are the people who have enjoyed and are beneficiaries of shares in companies that they did not build, and yet their own people live in conditions of squalor. All these things are now becoming a part of the discussion and national dialogue. And the ANC does not come out well when people start bringing those issues. So I don't think the party that is led by somebody who has lost every form of credibility and believability, who can also easily lie to the nation, can be taken seriously. So I don't see the ANC doing well. What the 2024 elections were pointing out is a future that is actually bleak for the ruling party.
Prof Seepe, always good having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
That's Professor Sipho Seepe, political analyst, of course. That road to the local government elections. It's going to be great electioneering. The question we need to ask ourselves, and this is to every single political party, can you deliver on those words when it comes to great electioneering? After the break, we're going to be wrapping up these discussions with regards to World's Week. I'm going to be speaking to Nafisa Sufla from Dynasty Finance Advisory Services. And then after that, I'm going to be speaking to Shaheen Suleiman, who is the head of Absa Islamic Banking. Do stay tuned.